What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I made $1,650 in 1 hour setting up email domains. And the craziest part was they paid it the same day I sent the invoice. Now the reason why I won the deal is the most underrated principle in the AI agency world right now, and most operators are completely missing it. Now this isn't a story about a clever automation or a complex AI workflow. In fact, it's the complete opposite. This is a story about a small, boring technical task, why the right person at the right moment will pay real money to have it done today instead of next week, and why that one transaction is worth more than the invoice value because of where the relationship goes from here. Now, if you're running an agency, considering starting one, or wondering where your next deal comes from, this lesson matters more than the next AI tool you'll learn. Now, if you're new here, my name is Dominic Schwantes. I'm the founder of Workflows, a B2B AI lead generation agency. I document everything I do in real time, the campaigns, the systems, and the results. And what you'll find in this document is based on what I actually did, not just some theory. So let's go into a bit of background, brief background, before we get into the nuts and bolts of everything. The prospect was a construction company CEO who was setting up a new business, a real estate agency, to sell the properties from his construction business. Now, the new venture was a brand new company and needed the basic setup before it could operate. So it needed a domain from GoDaddy and 2 Google Workspace inboxes for the 2 directors. Now, that is genuinely the entire scope. There wasn't anything else to it. I literally had to buy the domain and set up the 2 mailboxes and confirmed everything worked. Now, this is the kind of task that most agency operators don't even consider quoting for. However, he had been working with another agency on this. The agency was slow. We'll come back to this later. Days were turning into weeks, and he was getting fed up with the entire process. Now, the new business couldn't move forward without basic emails, so something should have taken a couple of hours had become a real blocker. So he literally sent me a text and asked me a question. How quickly could I get this done? And I told him I could do it the same day, not next week, but today. And he asked for the invoice on the spot. I sent it over for $1,650, and he paid it within the hour. Then I purchased a domain, set up the 2 inboxes, and just like that, they were live, all by the end of the day. Now, what he needed, or he had what he needed to start running the new business the next morning and to actually start sending emails from that new account. Literally one text, one invoice, and 1 hour of actual work was all that was included inside of this deal. However, it's only half the story, and the more important half is what happened next. So, if you have technical expertise, people will pay for it. This is the one thing that people severely underestimate, particularly with people who are in their 40s plus who aren't really technologically literate, like people under the age of 30. Not eventually, and not after some 6 weeks consultative process, but they will pay it right now when they need something done, like in my case. Now, most agency operators undervalue this because they're obsessed with these high ticket retainers, like these 10K a month retainers. But the strategic engagement the strategic engagement is actually to go for the long-term relationship. Now, those things matter, but they take months to develop. Meanwhile, deals like this one are sitting in front of you every single week, and most operators walk past them because the work feels too small or too boring. Now, the deals that pay you the fastest are not the ones that are the most sophisticated, but they're the ones where someone needs a specific thing done by tomorrow, and you, as the operator, can get it done. Now, let's have a look at why this relationship is worth more than the invoice. Now, this is the part that most operators completely miss when they hear the story. They think $1,650 for an hour of work isn't worth analyzing or building content around, but it actually is, and it's not because of the dollar amount on the invoice. The real value is whether the same day delivery process proves to the client that you can actually do what you say you can do. Now, he spent weeks watching some other agency muck him around and waste his time and drag his feet of what genuinely took a couple of hours, not even. It took me like 40 minutes. Now, when I said I could actually get it done today, I meant it, and I demonstrated that, something the other agency couldn't do. Now, reliability under time pressure on something simple proves a lot of credibility, and it also helped to prove trust, which, let's talk about a side note just quickly. Now, this wasn't the first thing I did for this client. I was also doing an automation for his construction business originally, which is why he thought of me when he was setting up his new real estate company and he was having problems with this other agency. Now, I already built trust and goodwill by helping him out with some of his email signatures for this company, which is why he was happy to pay what he did for this invoice automation. Now, then, when he had this problem, because I solved all these other problems and built up a lot of goodwill, he thought, I'm going to go ask Dom. And then I figured it out, not just figured it out, I did it within 40 minutes and got it to him delivered ASAP, which this other agency couldn't do despite being how big they were and all the money and funding that they had. Now, that demonstration is the entire foundation of every future deal we will ever do together. He is a CEO with 2 businesses, a construction company and a brand new real estate agency, both of which need ongoing services as they grow. Now, think about this. I did the emails for him now. Now, obviously, a new company, what else do they need? They need a website. They need SEO done. They need a whole bunch and a whole plethora of other things not just those three things that I listed. Who do you think he's going to go to now that I demonstrated that I can do things quickly and efficiently and actually do what I say I can do in the time frame that I said I could? He's obviously going to come to me, as opposed to that big agency who's probably charging more than I did and had all of these other procurement processes and took ages to get back to him and wasted his time. Where were we? Yes. Now, he's already told me about his plans to take the real estate arm and where he wants to take it, which obviously he will need all of these other services that I'm already envisioning. Now, if I just quoted that initial setup as a 5-day job, the relationship wouldn't have continued. Now, it would have started on the wrong foot, and he would still be wondering, why am I with this other agency, and is there a better way to go about this? Now, by delivering on the same day, I provided something very simple, and I removed all the doubt from his mind, basically, that I couldn't do it. Now, the principle that matters is the same day delivery is not even the fact that it's technical. It's the fact that it was really an audition and impressions really do last. The offer is everything that comes after when the client trusts you because you've already proven that, like I said, you can do what you say you can do. Now, speed equals dollar signs. And here's why. Every other agency or the other agency that he was consulting probably did have better decks, probably had better case studies, and probably had a more polished onboarding. They probably did because they'd been around for much longer. But none of that mattered because they never actually got to that stage. He wasn't buying sophistication, he was buying time. And every new day or every day his new real estate venture didn't have the basic email setup was another day the business could not operate. And every day was costing him momentum in real time. Now, when the calculation is that clear, the operator who can deliver today wins over the operator who can deliver in 2 weeks. Even if the 2-week version comes with the shinier proposal, speed is the product, but sophistication is the bonus. We're going to keep coming back to this later in the video. Now, this principle applies far beyond the domain setup. It applies to anywhere where there's a technical bottleneck blocking a real business outcome. The operator who can can clear this bottleneck the fastest is the operator who actually gets paid. And the operator who gets paid first is the operator who will get the next deal and the next deal after that. Now, why boring tasks are the highest leverage thing you can do? Buying a domain and setting up 2 mailboxes isn't exciting, and there isn't even any AI in this loop, and there's no clever automation. It's literally logging into GoDaddy, completing the purchase, and then navigating over to Google Workspace and setting that up and verifying the ownership of the domain. Maybe 40 minutes like it took me if you've done it before, and maybe 2 hours if you're being thorough and it's the first time doing it. Now, most agency operators consider this work below their level, and that is exactly why it pays well. The operators who do consider it as part of their offer are competing against a very small pool of people, and the operators who refuse to do it are building on taller and taller pyramids of capability while leaving easy revenue on the table at the bottom of the stack. Now, if you're early in the agency building, the boring tasks are the ones where you build a real book of business and develop the high leverage offers. Every $1,650 that you get in deals funds your runaway, builds a real testimonial stack, and often becomes or develops into longer term relationships once the prospect sees you can actually deliver. That is the part that compounds, is actually building proper relationships as opposed to transactional ones, because transactional ones always die out. Now, how to turn a same day deal into a long term relationship. Now, this is where most operators drop the ball. They deliver that same day setup, collect the invoice, and they disappear until the client comes back. That is leaving the entire upside of the deal on the table. The right move is to use your first interaction to surface the other problem that the client has, to then position yourself as the solution to that problem. Now, while I was setting up the domain and the inboxes, I was asking questions like, what is the bigger goal for the real estate arm? How do you plan to find buyers? And I was thinking about all these other questions which would help, where is it? All the way up here on the page, which would help solve and get me all of these. Like, have you got a website yet? When are you thinking of doing that? I.e., I can provide that for you. And in fact, in the next call I'm going to do with him, I'm actually going to build him a mock-up before that call, and I can show him this is something that we're going to do or we can do for you for this new real estate company. Now, the power or the great part about Claude and all of these AI tools is we can code much faster without paying tens of thousands of dollars for AI teams or for developers to code these websites. We can have an MVP in under an hour with these new crack tools. Where was I? Yes, here we go. Now, I was also asking him questions like, what does the sales process look like? Who handles the inbound inquiries? Now, none of these questions were billable, but every single one of them set up the next deal. And the framework is simple. Deliver the immediate fix first. Then use the goodwill of that delivery to map the bigger picture and identify the next bottleneck before the client even names it. Then you position yourself as the obvious operator and the solution maker to handle it when the time comes. Now, if it's done well, a $1,650 same day setup becomes the start of a relationship that delivers far more value over time. The setup was the audition, and the bigger work is the role. Now, how you actually find these deals is that you don't prospect for this kind of work, you catch it. Now, the most reliable source is replies to your existing cold email campaigns where the prospect mentions urgency or frustration with their current setup. When someone replies saying that they are dealing with a slow vendor or that they need something fixed quickly, you have a 30-second to 60-second window to offer that same day option. Most operators write a measured, qualifying reply asking for some discovery call next week. That's a completely wrong move. The right move is to say that you can solve it today and price the work in the next reply. The second source is the direct outreach method, when you mention the specific service. If your cold email or your content positions you as someone who can handle the technical setup quickly, the prospect comes to you when they hit that specific bottleneck. And the third source is referrals from prospects whose previous vendors were slow. Once one founder has paid you to clear the bottleneck in the same day, they tell other founders because the experience is rare enough to be memorable. So, that's all well and good, but what does this mean for you? If you're running an agency or starting one, do not chase the highest ticket offers first. Find a small, specific technical task in your niche that takes you under 2 hours to do and is worth more than $1,000. Because if it's not worth $1,000, you're just wasting your time. To the right buyer in the right moment. Build the system to deliver it the same day. Whatever automations or whatever tools you need to put in place in order for you to do that first. Then treat that delivery as an audition, not a transaction. Then use it to map the relationship and position yourself for the work that actually compounds from that. Now, if you are a founder hiring, the operator who says that they can solve the bottleneck today is almost worth more than the one who has the better presentation, the fancier pitch deck, and the rest. The first one removes the bottleneck, but the second one slows you down further while they prepare to do the same work. You don't need a 10 grand offer to make $10,000. You need to be the person who, when someone calls, they can actually get it done today, and they need to know and they need to trust you enough by actually fulfilling on that, by saying, or by you actually fulfilling on that trust and saying that, yes, I can do it. They need to have full confidence in you. Now, this is the same day checklist that you should be running through in order to qualify whether you can actually deliver this. So is there a specific technical task in your niche, whatever that may be, that takes you under 2 hours and it blocks a real business outcome, is worth at least $1,000 to the right buyer? Secondly, do you have the tools, accounts, and relationships set up to deliver it within hours, not days? Thirdly is, do you have a clear, repeatable scope of work for this task, including what is and is not included? Do you have an invoice flow that lets you send and collect payments within minutes of the call ending? I.e., that should be Stripe. Everyone should be able to say yes to this. Can you fit the work within a single block of focus time, or does it depend on third parties or processes that introduce delay? And lastly, do you have a clear next step offer ready to position the same day work when it's done, so the trust you earn doesn't go to waste? If all six are a yes, then the same day service that compounds into long-term relationships is a go. The next step is making sure your prospects know that you can actually deliver it. So, the agency content on YouTube right now is obsessed with strategies, decks, frameworks, fancy high ticket offers, and fancy AI Claude skills. Most of it is built for an audience that hasn't yet sent its first invoice. The fastest path to revenue is a small, boring technical task that someone needs done today. Speed is the product. Expertise is the product. The polished proposal is not and doesn't matter. Find the bottleneck and be the person who clears it in the same day. Send the invoice before the call ends, which you can actually set up if you use an AI workflow to have a type form so you can write on the call, enter in all the information, and then as the call's wrapping up, that proposal can be generated. There's a whole bunch of tutorials on YouTube if you guys want to go check that out. Then use the trust you earn to set up the next bigger deal. It's very simple. The setup is the audition, and the bigger work is the role. So if you're a business owner and you need more clients, that's what we do. We run Done For You cold email. Our campaigns are hitting 22% positive reply rates right now. If you want us to do the same for your business, the link to apply is in the description below. And make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any daily videos. And I look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's video.